Welcome back to the Women in Movement podcast. We're here with Roz the Diva, who is a fitness and movement coach, performer, MC in New York City. Roz, would you like to introduce yourself?
Faux shizzle. So I am Roz the Diva. I am 40 years old, which makes me an elder millennial, as I like to call myself. And I've been living in New York City, specifically in Brooklyn, for the last 14 years. And I'm doing pole dancing and lifting and TRX and some mobility work and whatever you want to call things these days. I think I've tried it at some point. And I'm also getting into public speaking.
I like that you said whatever you want to call things these days, because we're just trying to find a name for all the different types of movement.
Oh yeah. And there's everybody has some new trend that they want to start and something new. So I don't know what anything's called. I just know just do it with good form.
Yeah. I love that. So you said that you have been teaching and moving in many different ways. What brought you to movement, and what are your early baby stages of Roz moving around?
The baby stages of Roz moving around were, I think of me in gym class when I was in elementary and middle school. And I wasn't particularly good at moving around. I was always the last kid picked in gym. And I think that's because I was never good at running. I never had speed. There were so many activities and movements that as a kid, you don't have a ton of muscle. So what do? You just run, basically. And so I did a lot of running, through various sports and everything. But like I said, I was just never very good at it. I was never fast. I was never quick. I was never nimble. So my earliest memories were being picked last for pretty much everything. But still not completely discouraged. I participated in sports all through middle school and all through high school, and I had a great time doing it. But I kind of, just resolved myself, this is how this is going to be. You're never going to be at the top of the team. And also, something that I so wish had happened is I wish I had seen plus size female athletes when I was younger, because I did not know that we exist. So I always blamed my lack of speed and my lack of athletic prowess on my size, because I was overweight as a kid, and I've spent most of my life at this point being plus size. So, but I never had anybody to sort of look up to physically. So looking back, I wish I'd had somebody who looked like me when I was younger to say, Roz, you're going to be fine. And who cares about running, because there's all these other things that you're going to be good at.
Yeah. There's so much that you said in there. I think as a young child, a lot of the emphasis is on running around, playing tag, those type of games where they're just, and you see kids running around nowadays, you're like, oh my gosh, how do they have so much energy? And if that is the prime activity at a young age, it can be very discouraging. And I see it in a lot of youth nowadays when they're not good at something because they see something on YouTube being done all the time and very successfully, that they get discouraged. So I'm glad that sports like pickleball are coming into play, and other things that don't require the same skills as other sports that have been prominently in youth spaces. It's pickleball is a game where it doesn't require so much running if you're playing 2-on-2, or other things to your point of strength training or different things that you could have really succeeded at as a kid that just weren't at the forefront in those youth days. And it's also interesting that you say that about not having someone to look up to, because a lot of people I spoke to over the weekend, and I said that I'm going to be interviewing you today. They were like, I admire Roz. Roz is the one that got me to move.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Roz is the one that got me to try pole. Like, she might not even know it, but that's the reason why I'm here now. So, like, you are that person for a lot of people right now. So I just want to say thank you.
You're so welcome. And that's so wonderful to hear. And I really try not to take any of these compliments for granted, because, you know, they're you and everybody else the reason why I even have a career. So I'm very thankful.
And what sports did you do in high school? You said you did some sports.
Yeah, I played soccer and softball from 5th grade up until I graduated high school.
Oh, okay.
So soccer, I was defense. I was the last line of defense before the goalie.
Oh, that's tough.
So it was tough, but you know what? It wasn't a crazy amount of running. It was just kick the ball far, and I could do that. And so I could kick. I always had some strength to me. It was just always the cardio portion that was like, this isn't that cute, as per usual. But I love softball. I played softball for, like I said, from 5th until 12th grade. And I had a fabulous time doing so. I had a great team in high school. We actually just got inducted into my high school's athletic hall of fame.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's great. Now I would love to say that I was the star of this team and that I was out front and I'm the reason why we're in the athletic hall of fame, but not even close. I spent a good amount of my high school years on the bench of the softball team, because everybody was, and it wasn't even that I was so bad at it. It was just everybody was so good.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to boarding school in North Andover, Massachusetts. I went to Brooks School.
Nice.
So, I had a great time there. It's intense. Like, the boarding school lifestyle is not for the weak at all.
Yeah.
But I had a great time there. So, and I think softball really clicked with me, because the focus wasn't simply on cardio and how fast can you run, like a short distance run from one base to the other. I can figure that out. Anything after that is, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, you see, even like a lot of NFL combines are like a 50-yard dash, right? Like, it's just like those short little spurts, which is a different type of speed and a different type of power, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's so cool though. Softball. Nice.
Oh yeah.
Would you still play today if you had a chance, or?
I think I would actually. I think that was the sport that I was the most advanced in for sure.
Okay.
So I might pick up a mitt, maybe pick up a bat for sure. See what happened after all these years.
They have like a free women's league in Prospect Park that is like,
oh really?
Yeah, and there's people on the team that are like, there might be a few people on the team that are like 70 years old, but it's free. It's all women in Prospect Park. It's a huge league, so I'll put you in contact with some people that.
Please do. I did not know that there was a league there. That might be good for me to do something other, like get outside the gym a little bit, the gym walls.
Yeah, it's just, New York City is nice because there's so much opportunity to move with others and move in communities or find people outside and get into things that you enjoy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go into one of your other things you enjoy, which is pole. You are an instructor, a performer, and you also MC events, which is really just like its own artistry. And
thank you.
You're usually emceeing the Incredible events. I'm sure you have other events that I think I went to one at Body and Pole where you've emceed, but I haven't been in the pole game long enough. I'm sure you've been to a lot of places to MC. So do you want to let's talk about the emceeing first, and then we'll go into the other parts of pole.
Sure.
Yeah.
So emceeing is my way of participating in pole shows without having to take my pants off anymore. I used to so I've been polling since October 2007.
Wow.
So we're on year 17, I think. Something craze balls like that. Yeah, wow, that is year 17. I just did that math. So, and I used to do a ton of performing, in my younger pole days, and I loved it. I love being on stage. I love being a part of the cast, and I had such a great time doing that. But after a while, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can still participate, but without killing my body so much. And that's where emceeing really came in. And I just have such a great time emceeing pole shows and other kinds of shows as well. But it's mostly pole shows these days. Mm. So I'm the resident MC for Pole Play, which is a monthly series of performances, also in Brooklyn. And I also do most of Incredible shows. And then occasionally there's some one-offs that I do here and there. But I love, give me a mic and I'm a happy gal.
Yeah, your MC is just like, is also very much similar to stand-up, you know. There's so many jokes in there. And is there any way that you have worked on that, or has it just come to you naturally?
I think with emceeing, it just kind of like the jokes, I kind of riff off of what I see and what just happens and what's going on. Mm-hmm. So if you ask me to write a joke ahead of time, I wouldn't know the first place to start. Mm-hmm. And people have actually asked me if I've done stand-up or if I would do stand-up. And that seems terrifying. I might give it a shot, though, at some point. Maybe if I need an 8th career, then I'll throw in stand-up in there. But for the most part, it's I just kind of go with the flow, is the best way to describe it. And it's also about keeping the show moving. I have like my standard jokes that I do like at every show, and the standard jokes that I do at all the performances. And I do those for a while, and then they might get retired after like I don't know, a couple months or whatever, or in some cases a couple years. Yeah. But emceeing is just a lot of fun, and like I said, it's a way for me to still participate and be on stage without having to use my body so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And you also, I feel like you're in your reels. You also have this ability to, go with the flow and riff off on different topics, which, are viewed by many people. So it's like even a vulnerable space that you are providing real situations. Like you're sweating in the gym and you're like talking about something in a serious and funny way. And it's just this beautiful art that you have that makes things very like pliable to people and very like reachable, which I think hits different than just any other conversation or performance. So.
Thank you. I try to speak to people the same way I'd want someone to speak to me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important because it's just, I'm not an actor. I am terrible at acting. Mm-hmm. I have tried it. We've seen unless I'm being loud and obnoxious, it's probably not going to go over well. So this is why, social media works well for me for the most part, is because I get to be loud and obnoxious on my own terms.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people seem to enjoy it. I do as well. So if you are a listener, and you haven't checked out Roz's Instagram, it's very entertaining, informative, and yeah, it's a good time. Mm-hmm. So let's also go into poll. So what prompted you? What was like 2007? What was Roz doing at that point that was like, I'm gonna try this thing and swing around this metal thing?
So in 2007, my focus in working out was weight loss. I was low-key obsessed with losing weight. And I did successfully for a hot second. But what I came to realize is that weight fluctuates over time so much. So having that be my main goal and my main focus at the gym, it just wasn't working after a while. And so I was trying to do things that I genuinely enjoyed and that I had a fun time doing. And I started pole at Crunch, which is this big chain of gyms in New York City, and they're beyond New York as well, but a lot of them are in New York. Crunch is known for their funky kind of offbeat classes, and so they were the first gym to offer pole dancing as part of their regular schedule. So I have a Beyonce habit where I'd like to be her or dance back up for her. So anything with dance in the title, I want to try it out. And I tried pole for the first time and got my ass handed to me. I wasn't strong. I was not competent. I was not coherent. I was not sexy. I was not coordinated. I was hot garbage, just like everybody else who starts pole is hot garbage. But it was the best time being hot garbage I'd ever had at the gym. And it's also, pole is the hardest thing I'd ever done with my body by leaps and bounds. And I was like, what the whole hell is going on? And I don't know the answer to anything, but I know I'm coming back next week. So I was very much love at first sight with pole. And it eventually grew to be a hobby and then a serious hobby. And then it became side hustle and then my main hustle years later.
Yeah, it's interesting. When did Crunch start having pole at their facilities? Do you remember?
They started, I want to say, the end of 2006.
Okay.
Probably somewhere around there, because even some of like the OG New York polers, I started just at the tail end of their beginning. So like Michelle Stanek, for example. Stanek has been polling, I think 6 months maybe, or maybe even a little bit longer than I have. And the same thing with like Kira Johannesson, who was one of my first instructors. She'd been polling, I think 6 months to maybe a year, but no more than a year more than when I had started.
Oh, okay. And Crunch were they doing it prior to Body and Pole?
Yeah, so Crunch was born, Body and Pole was born out of Crunch in a sense. Okay. So Body and Pole, they're celebrating, I think, 15 years coming up. And Crunch Pole, if I've been doing it for 17 years, Crunch Pole's probably been around for about 18 years.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, what a timeline.
Yes.
You're wealth of knowledge here.
Yeah.
I spoke to someone over the weekend too, and they were like, it's just awesome that you're doing these recordings, because I feel like there's not an oral history of pole as well.
Yes.
Because it's true. Yeah, and I remember seeing you at Crunch. So I was a personal trainer first years at Crunch 10 years ago. And I remember seeing you there instructing. I never took a class because they were always like filled up.
Yes.
A week in advance. And this was at the Crunch on Flatbush. And, but I did take a class, like I did take a session with Aditi like 10 years ago.
Homie.
Yes. And she's wonderful. She was also the trainer that I had to test out in front of to get the job in the earlier stages. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. She was just very like serious and very good at what she does. So I like really wanted to give her a hard workup. But yes, and then she so she had given me a pole workout and I was like, this is super hard. Yes. And then years later, like maybe like 3 different things went into place, and I was like, okay, I might try pole. So this is like 10 years later, and enjoying it. But yeah, it's interesting, and some people still teach at Crunch as well as these other studios too.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a cool. I think it is a cool breaking the barrier of what pole can be, and sometimes people I feel like are afraid of trying pole, and when it's in a gym setting people might get to see it or try it out, whereas they might not feel comfortable going to a studio.
Yeah. The big draw for me for doing pole at a chain is that honestly is financial. Because as we know, or people are about to know, pole is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Pole is a fairly expensive sport. It's very specific. You need specific equipment. You need specific insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You need specific space. Unlike basketball where you just need like a surface and a ball and you're good.
Yes.
Like pole, you need all these things to sort of line up, get your ducks all in a row. And so when you're at a facility that has the financial means to do so and the space to do so, it makes a huge difference in cost. And so these pole classes were already folded into the membership cost. So we didn't have to pay extra to take them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I have paid extra? Probably, because that's how much I loved it. But you didn't have to pay extra, which is why so many of us took multiple classes a week, is because we could.
Right. Yes. And there's still like Kenny still teaches at Crunch right now, and there's still a lot of awesome teachers at those chain gyms as well. But then at some point you moved into Sacred, which was...
Yes.
What year was that around?
I started teaching at Sacred in February of 2011.
Okay.
And so we're going on 14 years. That is bananas. And that's when I started teaching pole. Mm-hmm. And I started because I was previously in a local competition here, Polesque, many, many, many years ago. And the owner of Sacred saw me perform.
Wow.
And was like, oh, do you teach? I'm opening up this new studio near Bed-Stuy.
Wow.
I'd love to have you a part of the staff. And at that point, I'd been polling for 3 years. And teaching seemed like a cool thing, but I didn't know where I was going to do it or why or when or any of those slight minor details. Mm-hmm. So when somebody asked me like, hey, do you want to come teach? It was dream come true. And it was also, I loved being a pole dancer, but teaching is where my heart is. And I didn't know that until I led my first class. And I remember the first class is supposed to last 30 minutes. I definitely taught for an hour. I'm that teacher. And it was pretty fantastic. And actually, Aditi was at my very first class that I taught.
Wow.
Yeah, she snuck away from me. At that point, I'm not sure she was doing fitness yet. I think she was still working. She's working at either Saks or like Bloomingdale's, selling sunglasses. And she snuck out of work for the afternoon and kind of came and took my class.
Wow.
So that's pretty great.
That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, and another person who was on the podcast, KD, had also said that she loved taking class with you at Sacred, which was years ago too. And Sharon and Kirsten, who are the owners of Incredible, also used to go to Sacred, right? So it seems like a really beautiful community that bloomed in that space that was brand new. And
it really did. We had the Sacred days are, oh my gosh, some of my fondest memories of pole were at Sacred. I think it was around, I don't even remember how long Sacred was open for. I want to say like 5 years or so, somewhere around there. At least the pole portion of Sacred. Sacred was going on after that too. But the pole program was probably about 4 or 5 years. And that's where I got to know so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, Sharon and Kirsten, we started there. Kenny also was there for a while. And then some other New York pole peeps. And I used to teach on Sunday afternoons. And at that time, I wasn't trying to do fitness full time, so I still had like a survival job. So I would scream my voice out every single Sunday and then show up hoarse and crazy sounding to work on Monday. And people were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, fine." I sounded like a gremlin half the time when I was at work. But Sacred was pretty amazing.
That's nice. Yeah, I've heard so many great stories from that place. I'm very thankful for it years later. So some of your other interests include like weightlifting, and you said TRX. So would you like to talk about that a little bit as well?
Sure. So pole dancing was my gateway drug into fitness as a full-time career. And really into different kinds of fitness, because I used to look at things like lifting weights. I thought it was boring and scary. And like, unfortunately, so many other women do, because we're not exposed to those things nearly as much as dudes are. So I was in like the girl cardio trap, as I like to call it, like thinking I'll lose 1,000,000 pounds if I just stay on the treadmill forever. Not true, but I didn't know that at the time. But I digress. I digress. So pole was my inspiration to try new things at the gym, because I thought to myself, I don't feel like doing this, but if it's going to make me a stronger pole dancer, then that's what we're going to do. And it worked. And I did become a stronger pole dancer. And I was able to not only try new things, but fall in love with them. And because one reason I fell in love with pole is because it wasn't about how I looked, and it wasn't about my weight. It was about what I could do, and doing just some really cool things at the gym, cool looking things. And so, and also pole taught me a tremendous amount of discipline with form, and recognizing the importance of form. And that translates over really well to weightlifting. And I didn't know it at the time, but weightlifting is like my calling in life after pole, because it's not focused on speed, but it's focused on strength and on power. And strength, I can do strength. I can do the strong stuff. So that's sort of how that transition happened after a while. And then once I knew I wanted to do fitness as my full-time career, I knew I couldn't survive just on pole. Because at that time in New York, there was like 3 pole studios. There weren't that many options. And I knew I wouldn't be able to come up with a full-time salary if I just did pole. So I was going to have to teach other fitness modalities. And I'm really glad that I did that, because it was just good for my body to get out of repeat movements and repeat movement patterns. So it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I think that I'm similar in many ways too, whereas I like to dabble in different modalities. I think that there's really powerful things you get from doing different movements. Like, there are some really powerful grounding like feels that you get from doing a deadlift, or like lifting something super heavy, or there's something like just like this invigorating feel from being able to like throw a medicine ball or a rock like really far. You're just like, oh, I'm like, I have this power. I know that it's in me, And it is awesome to swing around and pull yourself up onto things. Those are invigorating in their own ways. But yes, when you have like a different language of movement, right? So a different language of movement, not just with with like other people, but with yourself too. I can do these really hard things in many different ways. I think it's really helpful to keep the passion going forward.
Absolutely.
Even the other day, I just took a medicine ball and I was like playing around with it on the pole, like a 10-pound medicine ball, and I was just like holding it in different positions and stuff, and I was like, oh, like just like checking in with like what my body was, how it was reacting, and it was just like it was fun and different, and like yeah, cool just to know that you're strong enough to do that or something. Yeah,
totally
different. Okay, so another thing that you spoke on was teaching and instructing. How do you think that your teaching and instruction has evolved, like in the past couple of years or since you?
Sure. So my teaching, I try to be as inclusive as humanly possible, because I've had so many different kinds of athletes roll through my class. So I want to make sure, my goal is that nobody feels left out. And as much as possible, I'm hell bent on everybody having a role, having a place, having a time, having an impact on the people around them. And so I've tried to become inclusive in my language. Like an example is, instead of saying like, hey guys and girls, saying like, hey peeps, hey fam, because I've had transgender and non-binary people in my classes, and saying hey guys or hey girls was actually accidentally excluding them. So that's probably one of the most like concrete examples. And also, I've also recognized that fitness can move at your own time, and modifications are not the enemy. Modifications are what are going to help you actually stick with movement and be good at that movement. So I've definitely learned not just to embrace modifications, but to celebrate them and to show them off, and to really encourage people, take the mod. And even going so far as to not even calling it a modification, but just like, here's a different option or variation for you of the same movement.
Yeah, I love that. I think that modifications are wonderful. I love putting a band around my feet to do extra pull-ups, just to get some more reps in, or different variability in grip strength. And like, I think there should never be shame in doing a modification of an exercise. A lot of the times modifications are just a way to really tune into what needs to be activated. And even like a modification on the way up, and then a very slow negative in whatever form, can be hard as anything. Like it can be the most tiring process. So modifications are variabilities. I love that you said that. And then I also love that you spoke about the inclusivity of your coaching, because I think that that's one of the most important things when it comes to coaching fitness and movement. Working within the city for years, like we've had people with different languages, body types, and different past experiences with injuries, and it's just like, one, how can you make people feel welcome in the space and celebrated? And you stated that like that they have a role, which I really liked. And I think you could take it back to your team days. Like everybody feels part of a team when they're together in a way. Even just in a class, like you could be running a strength class or a pole class, and people feel like they're part of a team and they're cheering people on. and people can be helpful in different ways towards the group success, which is, a goal we as humans like.
Yes.
Community.
We totally do. And I think that's important, and that gets missed. I think, especially now, the time of this recording, it's January, which means that it is peak diet culture season right now. And one of my many problems with mainstream diet culture is that there's this thing that you have to do it alone. You have to have the money, the time, the effort, and it's just a you. If you can't use it, it's a you lose weight. It's a you problem. And when in reality is one of the reasons why I fell in love with pole wasn't just because it's a team sport. It really truly is. Nobody learns pole by themselves in a vacuum somewhere. Even if you're like in super west nowhere, you've always got at least one or two Instagram friends that are cheering you on from afar. So the idea of community and people coming together really truly makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I love that you said it's a team sport, because I've never really heard that from anybody, but it is true. Like you, I know someone once posted something where they named all the moves that they have gotten from other people. And they were like, thank you for this and that. And like, they had one post of like a freestyle, but in it, they named all the people that they had learned things from. Or it's a community effort. But then you're also allowed to have your own expression within this community effort that is celebrated.
Yes.
And, it's a really different community. If, you haven't tried it out, we suggest that you check it out someday. Or some type of aerial arts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So getting into the inclusivity too, you have some that are like specific trainings, or you have some things on Patreon that are specific towards different groups that aren't always like highlighted or included or thought about when approaching topics like plus size or other I don't like to group people, but other communities. So could you speak on like the way you like to use modifications, or how you like to teach, whether it's online or in person? Because I also know you've done in-person training for that as well. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So inclusivity is really important to me because I know how it feels to be excluded. Even when people aren't trying to exclude you, I very much remember what it feels like when you're sort of on the outskirts of a particular group. And so that's why I'm hell-bent on making sure that nobody in my realm feels like they're ever relegated to the outskirts of any group for any reason. Unless you're an asshole, then bye. But in terms of inclusivity, though, I think particularly my work is centered around plus size individuals, because that's how I identify as Black and as plus size. And there is this one of my least favorite myths in fitness or mainstream diet culture, I should say, is that plus size athletes don't exist. Some people see us as a total an oxymoron and see it as a joke, because people think that because we've been taught that if you work out hard enough, you'll lose weight. And that's why people go to the gym, is so they lose weight. And that's when you start to feel good, is when you start to lose weight and feel good. But as I've mentioned a few times, there's so much more to working out than that. And you don't have weight loss can be a part of your journey. And I certainly don't want to demonize weight loss because it's not necessarily a bad thing in my view, but it just doesn't need to be the end all be all of the reason why you work out. Because it just gets tired after a while.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that no matter what you look like or what your current abilities are, that we build from the ground up. Rather than highlighting all the things you can't do, let's take some time to talk about what you are able to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think also like weight loss comes with this idea of taking something away from your body. Whereas like when you formulate it in a way that like, I want to achieve this goal and you shoot towards the positive, you're one, more likely to get there, and two, it's just just like a wonderful journey there, as opposed to like demonizing or, you know, just negatively or trying to take pieces away of yourself. And also like the way we speak to ourselves matters, and it matters like to all the cells in our body, right? You can stress yourself out, you can like attain more water in spaces, you can attain more inflammation just because you're giving yourself negative talk or breathing patterns or something. So I do like that process of focusing on something, the goal, or what is the achievement that you want, as opposed to trying to take something away. And oftentimes the weight loss comes, or the strength building comes because of just that outside goal. That's just more of a positive insight.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think the benefits will come your way. But I think it's also important to note that even if you never end up achieving some of those goals, it does not make you less of an athlete.
Right. Yeah. That's what my business is called, like Love the Evolution. So it's like falling in love with the process, not the end goal.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is just because life is a process and we don't know what the end goal is going to be or what's going to happen.
Nope, sure don't.
Yeah. Michelle, who does stretching at Incredible, she was like, I don't think people should set expectations. Just, you know, do the work and enjoy it. And
I agree with that.
Sometimes you can get let down by your expectations. And I was like, that's wonderful. It's a good way to look at things. Yeah. So, what are some ways in which you like to, do you have any tips as far as being inclusive, or whether you're teaching pole or fitness, that you'd like to share with the audience?
Sure. So I think one key to being inclusive is not making assumptions about what people are able to do or what they're not able to do. So for example, I spent many years working with one of my personal training clients, and she has a disability. And she's got part of her fingers are amputated, so she's an amputee. And I used to think, oh, I have to pick up everything for her. I have to open all her doors or help her tie her shoes because, you know, totally ignoring the fact that she's a grown-ass woman who can do things for herself. At first, I made some assumptions, but then when I stepped back, I gave her 5 seconds to figure it out and to do it. She's rocking and rolling, no problem.
Right.
So I had to check myself very much and make sure that I wasn't making assumptions about what she was capable of doing. So I think I suggest to all the coaches out there, if you want to be more inclusive, treat everybody as if they are a blank canvas. You ask a lot of questions. Instead of assuming that somebody can do something, say, here's the goal. Are you comfortable going for this? Or are you comfortable trying this? And if they say, I'm not comfortable doing that, asking them why. and not in an accusatory manner, but in the way that you're trying to get more information so you can figure out what the roadblocks are and you can hopefully remove some of those roadblocks.
I love that. I love that. I hope all the listeners really, really took into that. It's really important for people to just feel safe.
Yes.
And we are not mind readers. So it's very important to ask the questions to make sure that you understand why they don't feel safe in whatever they're doing. Because if you don't ask, you don't know. And I feel like a lot of times maybe we don't ask questions because we want to seem like we have the answers to things, but we should be asking more questions because everybody's different. And that's how you really get through faster. Because you do demos and you do spotting and you do even like upside down classes, so it's like it can be some scary stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So especially like a lot of our brains have not been upside down, so it's just like you're disoriented with your body and the positioning, and you're scared. Your head is closest to the ground. Like there's so many things in there that could be the fear, and for you to ask those questions and get to the like head of the problem so that we can make the client or member or friends feel comfortable.
And I think also coming back yet again to modifications and to variations and options for people, I think to be inclusive you have to let people guide their own ship. If you're always giving commands and telling people this is how it should be, this is what you should be doing, then people can feel like a failure if they don't match all of those demands and match all of those things. So by you taking a step back and saying, okay, here's my idea for this movement. You do parts A, B, and C. What do you think about this? And giving students and your clients the option, well, I can do A and C. I'm not sure about B yet. That's okay. That is totally okay to do that. And it's important to do that because you want one reason why I felt when I was younger like I wasn't as valuable to sports was not just because of my size, but also because it's like here is the only way of doing something. If you can do it, you're a success. If you can't, then you're a failure. And I didn't have any autonomy over what I was doing. That's the word I've been searching for about 3 minutes now.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that word and be like, I think that's what I preach too, is like trying to provide people with this autonomy to not need me anymore eventually.
Exactly. Like, I want to work myself
out of a job.
Out of a job. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I think that we're very much on the same pages with that. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
stating that. Is there anything else you want to add with autonomy?
I think just coming with autonomy, that's how you're going to get people who are otherwise intimidated by working out because they think that they have to heed somebody else's commands. But then when you ask them to heed their own commands, then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's powerful. That's what
gets so powerful.
That's what gets them to go to the gym and do the lifting that's going to get them to do what they want to do.
To do all the things. Exactly.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I think there's studies on how often you cue people. And a lot of times it's best to cue them like 1 every 10 reps, not even... Like in certain circumstances, obviously you want to keep people safe, but oftentimes like the cueing less and the cueing with more intention is much better for the individual to to be successful as a like a problem solver, as like a confident mover, which is cool to think about. So I've often taken a step back, even in like my basketball classes, from cueing too much. And I try to tell people, I'm like, I'm not trying to do less work. I'm trying to cue with more intention.
Yeah.
You know, as a young trainer, and you can tell when you see young trainers at the gym. Like 10 years ago, I remember saying like, you're trying to use the muscles that so that the client doesn't even know. You're trying to cue with like all the things, but now it's just with more intent, and that's where I think again it provides more autonomy to the individual.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, because everyone's capable.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So you've also taught like you've taught worldwide. So can you speak a little bit about some of your trips or like travels and how you like to do things, what you like to do when you're on the road?
Yep. So, I have had the pleasure of teaching in 40 different states, and the goal is to teach in all 50.
What? That's amazing.
I've done a lot of like the difficult kind of far states. So I've done Alaska twice. I did Hawaii. I've done West Virginia. I guess I should probably talk about what I haven't done. I still need to go to Montana, Alabama, Delaware, Kentucky, Nebraska. No, I did Nebraska. I just did Nebraska. Oklahoma. Did I mention Wyoming?
No.
Okay, Wyoming.
I got a friend in Wyoming, so I'll ask her to find some friends.
Good. Yes, make that happen. And then a few other, and Maine.
Have you been to Ohio?
I have been to Ohio.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
I've been there 2, maybe 3 times.
Nice. Where in Ohio did you go?
I've been to Cincinnati.
Nice.
And I think I've been to Cleveland.
Okay.
So
nice. I'm from Cleveland, so I was
wondering. Fabulous. Yeah. Yes. So so that's domestically. Internationally, I've taught in 8 or 9 different countries. I've taught my latest trip was in June of 2024. I went to Canada. And I was in Edmonton, Canada. Which is like, I think it's over Montana somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. I was welcomed with open arms, which is really great. One of the coolest places I've been to, or more prettiest places, Germany was beautiful.
I love Germany.
Yeah, I taught in Regensburg in Germany. Please don't ask me to find it on a map. I just know it exists and I was there.
Yeah.
I would love to, and I've taught in the UK and in Scotland. I've also taught in France. I've taught in Amsterdam. And is that it for Europe? Probably maybe like and also in Australia and New Zealand.
Nice.
So, I've been fortunate to take my pole show on the road. And I've been just teaching a lot about inclusivity with pole dancing in particular, and how to coach plus size pole dancers. That's one of my signature workshops that I don't believe anybody else is really focused on that at the moment. So that's the workshop that I do most often when I travel.
Yeah, I think that's good because that's what's needed. Like you see this need and you're filling it. So thank you very much for taking all those travels
You're
and
welcome.
trips to make sure that everybody feels like they can hit the pole.
Listen,
and,
I have a passport and no kids. So I joke, you send me an email, you're like, hey Roz, you want to come hang out? And I'm probably there tomorrow.
Nice. Amazing. Yeah. So if you're listening and you would like to give suggestions or have Roz come to your space, you can definitely hit her up on Instagram, or we'll provide all the other information in the bio. Yeah, that's just a vast amount of countries. What would you say would be your most challenging piece of traveling and teaching?
So traveling and teaching is always, there's a little bit of a gamble that's involved because I want to travel to make money. That's the first goal, is being able to pay my rent after these classes that I teach. And for the most part, I've been very fortunate. I've sold out a ton of classes, but I've also had to cancel trips simply because there weren't enough signups. And if I went on the trip, I would end up losing money. And that's what I don't want to do, because I have to see myself as a business person first and foremost. And then there's also, it's getting enough people to sign up. Sometimes I barely do any work and the workshops are sold out. Other times I'll be promoting for weeks and weeks and weeks. And people are like, well, I was going to go, but I don't think I'm good enough yet. Or, which is just killing me.
Yes.
Or like, oh, there's always like, you worry if my pricing is too much. Can people afford it? Because like we talked about, pole is not a cheap sport. So there's a lot of factors as to why people may or may not end up rocking with you.
Right.
And it's hard to know, like, let's pinpoint the exact reason why this workshop sold out, but this one didn't.
Right.
One thing I have come to learn, though, is that I typically make way more money when I go to smaller rural communities as opposed to going to big major cities.
Interesting.
So, like, this is like an example I always give. Fargo, North Dakota. Not necessarily rural, but it's also not the most happening place. But I made more money in the Dakotas than I did in London.
Interesting.
And that's proven true in a few different cases.
Interesting.
And I think that's because I try to go places where not a lot of people are going.
Oh, okay.
Or have gone before. So when I reach out to studios like, hey, please come hire me, then I try to see, like, if once I've got one studio locked down, I'll see what's in like maybe a 2 or 3 hour radius after that, around that one studio, and try to hit up all the studios in that area and make it happen.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Did you ever find like language as an issue, or?
I have been fortunate because I only speak English because I'm a typical American.
Yes, yeah, me too. It's okay.
So, but everywhere I've gone, people have been bilingual or even trilingual at the very least. There was a really interesting experience I had that when I was in Paris. I was teaching pole for a week at this international dance camp. And there were absolutely students who did not speak English. And I was teaching them on a stage pole how to pole dance and teaching a big group of people how to pole. On
a stage pole.
On one singular stage pole for like 12 people.
Wow. And if you're a listener that is not familiar with stage poles, they can be a little bit wobbly.
Oh yeah.
They can be a little bit unsecure some ways, so they're not fixed, and they can, there's just a couple variables there that you have to play with.
Yes, exactly. So when I was teaching, I recognized, okay, I can't just teach with words. I'm gonna have to demonstrate, and I'm gonna have to almost like not become a caricature of myself, but I have to make my demonstrations very clear and make sure that my words match my actions.
Right.
So people could start to understand the language of pole and how it sounds. And I can't tell you the brilliance that came out of these dancers. Some of them were fluent in English. Others, like I said, I don't think we understood a single word between us,
Oh,
but we figured it out.
right.
And they certainly did, and they did an amazing job. And that was a really awesome teaching experience.
Oh, that's so cool. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, language can be a barrier at some points, but I feel like you said, you can make a caricature of yourself and like
Mm-hmm.
show what you don't want to, what is not the most ideal and what is what we're kind of looking for. Make sure you're engaged or whatever it is. Like, yeah, you have to, it's more of like a game of charades in
Yes,
a sense.
that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there like a way when you're going on the road that is there something that how do you tap into Roz when you're on the road? Is there like some type of ritual or something that you do for yourself that's just like I'm grounded, I'm in my space, like even though it's not New York City?
You'd think I would have like a routine, but really I don't. The biggest thing is just making sure that I arrive like on time and a little bit early to studio so I can just kind of see what the haps is, see what's going down. I love to take naps. And so if I have time, I might take a nap at some point.
Yeah.
Before a workshop, and I don't even have to be tired to take a nap. I just enjoy the art of sleeping. But I can't think of any pre-class rituals or anything that I do to sort of get grounded. It's mostly like, or just recognizing like, okay, we gotta tune out sort of what's going on in the real world, and just enjoy this time that you have right here.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Just be present.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of a time now in 2021, August of 2021. There was PoleCon, which is short for the International Pole Dancing Convention.
Oh, yes.
And I believe it was their 10-year anniversary. And we were down in New Orleans and New Orleans, excuse me. We're down in New Orleans. And there was a hurricane that was quickly approaching.
Oh, no.
And we were dead smack in the middle of where this hurricane was supposed to hit.
Oh, my gosh.
So, yes, a big oh my gosh. So what are we to do? So before everyone kind of scrambled and left, I did end up teaching one workshop, not during the hurricane. This was probably about 36 hours at least prior to the hurricane.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, everybody was kind of on edge. Like, how am I going to teach? How are we going to do this? I'm worried about getting home to New York from New Orleans. And I was like, all right, let's just go think about the next 90 minutes and that's it and knock this out. So it was actually a pretty good workshop. It was almost full.
Nice.
And then right after the workshop, I got into a car with 3 super fans and we drove from New Orleans to Baltimore.
Wow.
Yeah, to escape. We're outrunning the hurricane.
Oh my gosh, what a trip.
Yes, it was quite the trip.
That's fun. All the things you do for pole.
Oh my goodness gracious, yes. Outrunning a Category 5 hurricane.
That's amazing. Okay, so we have a few questions from some of your followers, speaking of super fans. One question was, how do you find your student-teacher relationship, and like how is it they appreciate that it is casual and yet very like informative. So we did speak a little bit about that, but if you want to talk a little more on that specifically.
Sure. So I think with finding the student-teacher relationship, it starts with talking to people. And what I do during all of my pole classes is I will demonstrate a move, and then I'll say, all right, go and practice this. And as people are practicing, I visit each pole to where students are and just check in with them and say, like, how's this going?
Right.
What's good? Anything you need help with? Can I spot you? Kind of asking general questions like that. And that's how you start to get to know people and to gain their trust.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it comes down to going to them and not making any assumptions about what they need or what they don't need from you. So you ask, what do you need from me?
Right.
Sometimes students are like, I'll take whatever you want to give me right now. Other times students are like, you know what, I'm good to go. I just want to do my own thing and practice. And that's totally fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with really talking and establishing trust.
Right.
With your students is really big and important.
Yes. I love that you also say that you demo it and then go around to people individually, because certain people might not need all the cues, right? Like,
exactly.
Every person, again, to your point, you're asking the question, what do you need? And that person might be like, I need to find a relationship with my right knee pit. I don't know where it is. And you're like, okay, so then you're able to specifically hone into that space. But, yes, the going around and speaking to people individually, one, I think helps them feel seen.
Yes.
And two, it's just a process that is very helpful, again, to building the autonomy in the member, client, participant. I love that. Thanks. And then
you're welcome.
Another question was, this had to do with a different showcase that you used to MC and you hosted. But this was your thick pole showcase that you used to do.
Oh yeah, yes. Dangerous Curves.
Yes, and so that's what it was called, Dangerous Curves. Okay, so the follower wanted to know, what was your passion behind that showcase? Would you be able to pop it back up again? Just anything around that showcase would be wonderful to hear about.
Sure. So I started Dangerous Curves in August of 2012. I'm really on it with pole dates. You
are.
So August 2012 is when we did the first Dangerous Curves showcase. And I did it simply because it was, as a plus size poler, I was very fortunate to get asked to do a bunch of shows and participate in different pole events. But I was always the only person who looked like me. And I was like, I know I can't be the only person out there my size doing pole. And so fast forward to me making a random Instagram, or not even Instagram, because Instagram didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
Making a Facebook post like, hey, I'm going to do a plus size pole dancing competition just for kicks. Why not? And we had people from 6 different states come up, and we had the first one at Sacred.
Wow, that's amazing.
It really was. It was really great. We had a blast doing it. And Dangerous Curves now has morphed. I've taken the name Dangerous Curves and I've morphed it into pole camps, into some classes, into some workshops, into pretty much whatever I needed to be at that moment. And the showcase lives now at PoleCon.
Wow.
Which is really great. So we're part of the lineup, because PoleCon features a zillion different pole dancing showcases.
Right.
Each with a different theme and a different vibe.
Right.
So the theme and the vibe of Dangerous Curves is all about plus size, self-identified plus size pole dancers that apply to be a part of this, to be a part of the showcase. And then I choose, me and the squad, we choose who gets to go on stage.
Wow, that's so cool.
So yeah, will I bring it back? I'm not sure. Or I should say, will I bring it back to New York?
New York, yeah.
I'm not sure right now. It's not my primary focus. And also the shows get expensive to produce.
Right.
And I have to really, as a business person, I have to stop and think, what are you trying to get out of this venture?
Right. Right.
So if I'm trying to, years and years ago when I first started it, I wasn't worried about, is this going to make me money or not?
Right.
But now I'm at the place where I'm like, okay, you need to tighten up financially, and you can't just do stuff. It's not all just for the love of pole and for the love of what you're doing that doesn't make financial sense.
Yes.
So when the time comes where it makes financial sense, where I at least wouldn't lose any money,
right,
then it's definitely worth thinking about doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a hardship when you're doing what you love, is like putting that financial target on it. It's like, but I love doing this and I love sharing it with people and I find it's important. And then, and there's so many different ways in which you're taking movement and pole and fitness in different directions that it's like, it can always come back. It may not, but it was a beautiful time and it still inspired people today. So that's just really cool to hear about. And it still lives in PoleCon, which is really awesome to know. Do you have, like, Sam Starr had spoken about different things that she looks for as a judge. Is there anything that, like, specifically as a judge or as a reviewer of tapes that you look for if people are interested in applying to different competitions?
I think people need to take their time on the pole. Just because the pole is there doesn't mean that you need to stay on it like white on rice 24 hours a day. If you've got 3 minutes, I don't need 2 minutes and 59 seconds worth of tricks. Because after a while, everything starts to blend together.
Right.
And that's a rookie mistake that I think people feel pressured, like, once the music starts, I need to start tricking. And if I don't start tricking, then, oh gosh, people are going to get bored watching me.
Yeah.
But I want to see a lead up. I want to see a character. I want to see a story.
Right.
All of those things really make a difference. I want someone with a little bit of pizzazz to them. Doesn't matter if that pizzazz is like sad girl pole. Doesn't matter if it's like live your best life pole.
Yeah.
If it's like, if you want to be a hooker, if you want to be, a ballerina, doesn't matter. Just commit. Choose something and commit and make it happen. And again, just because the pole is there doesn't mean that you need to be married to it 24 hours a day.
I think, like, the floor is a great feedback tool, and there's so many things that can happen with the floor.
So many with the floor.
Yeah. And as well as, like, the feeling that comes behind it. Like, what is if the person can make you feel something, or that emotion that, like you're saying, like, embody that character or whatever it is, that matters more than a bunch of tricks and transitions and yeah.
And especially the character and the intent behind it goes doubly important if a lot of fancy tricks are not accessible to you.
Right.
And since I'm obsessed with inclusivity in different kinds of bodies, it's really important to note that different bodies are going to excel in different ways.
Right.
So we can't just uphold one way of pole success and judge everybody by that singular way of pole success.
Right.
We've got to look at the individuals. We've got to open this thing up and really take a nuanced look at what's going on.
Yeah. And also, I think even just the ability to use musicality to your advantage, as opposed to just trying to throw so many tricks that one may not be accessible to you in the moment, or you're just trying to push through it. But, like, just those little flair of musicalities are really what strike the audience. Like,
absolutely.
Even the pauses or the silences, it's like, what's going to happen then? Bam! Like, something, something goes quick. Like, those are the moments people remember, not this transition into this trick, or like, this person hit broken down ballerina into whatever. I think that's beautiful. And I think that allows pole to be an inclusive environment as opposed to like gymnastics, which is like how many turns can you do in the air? Like
Exactly.
It's more about the musicality, the flow, the body waves, um the not making it a mission, making it like an experience. Wonderful. So just a few more questions if that's okay.
Sure.
So what currently are you interested in learning about, or are you into any books at the moment? Is there anything that's...
I would like to learn more about, I would like to become a trauma-informed instructor, fitness professional. Right now, because I've had several clients who've been through various stages of trauma, and I want to learn how to serve them better. So that's big on the list. And then completely, it's kind of non sequitur, but in terms of business stuff, I want to be a professional speaker. And I want to I want to figure out how I can bottle up all the knowledge that I have and that I've gained take my experiences and turn it into either a course or a workshop or a keynote. And I do have some experience doing that. So I need to remind myself that just because I'm not speaking to everyone every day, that does not mean that I'm not a speaker.
No, I would definitely consider you a speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. So I need to remind myself, like, yes, Roz, you are a speaker.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. One, I love that you brought in the knowledge behind dealing with individuals who have gone through trauma. I think we've all dealt with trauma in our life in some way. And pole can be a very vulnerable space for trauma to be to come out, because the body keeps the score, if you
sure does,
or the body keeps knowledge that the brain doesn't always have. Anna one time, she describes it as activation instead of trauma, which I like, because I think that it provides like this idea that it something has been activated in the body, as opposed to just like always negative, always just like put it in a corner type deal with like, how can we sit with this? How can we deal with this? How can we be okay with it, move on, and all those things. So and it is huge in the pole community and other dance communities. So I think that the somatic practice is coming like into play more, which is nice to see. How the body relates to the mind. And then also I love that you're on this personal speaking and professional speaking journey. I think that it's wonderful when you can find the words behind what you feel is important, and you value. And I think a lot of people will be better hearing, whether it's from you on Instagram or in professionals, like conferences or wherever you decide to take your outlets. I think you also help with certain certifications as well, as far as that. Like,
so I don't have any certifications. I used to have one of my workshops certified actually by NASM.
Oh yes, okay.
And by AFA.
Okay.
But I just found that not enough people, because mostly pole people were taking my workshops. Not a lot of pole people were looking for those continuing education credits.
Right.
So it didn't make sense for me to essentially pay.
Right.
For other people to pay.
Yes. No, that makes sense. But I mean, you also like you speak, or like I'm gonna do instructor pole in a few weeks.
Oh,
but so I've heard that you also come and speak on things maybe there or other instructor programs where which are public speaking outlets. But yes, so you already have that as well in your belt, right?
Yes, definitely. I've spoke to instructor pole whenever they've had it. So I think it's been twice now, maybe once or twice.
Mm.
So, and I'll be speaking again to them, which I'm excited about. And I do on my workshop tours, I speak to a lot of different instructors. Sometimes we'll have instructor only trainings. And other times, it'll just be if an instructor comes to class, then I try to drop some instructor bombs in there, some trainer bombs in there, as needed. But yeah, I do love speaking to instructors, and I love speaking to people.
Nice.
Who even if they're not an instructor yet, if they want to be at some point, or thinking about it, I still want to talk to you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, awesome. So, where can listeners find you? What's their easiest paths? Like, give all your plugs.
Sure thing. So, best place to find me is Instagram. I'm Roz, R-O-Z, the Diva. And that also is my website is rozthediva.com. I'm on patreon.com/rozthediva. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Threads. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter /X, whatever we're calling it these days. So a little bit of everywhere, but if you Google Roz the Diva, you will be transported into a magical land of lots of bright colors and half-naked gym exploits.
Also, like, I think you've been interviewed by Shape magazine or something, right?
Yeah, definitely. On my website, there's a whole there's a press page.
Awesome. So definitely check that out too if you want to have more information on Roz. Yeah, we're so happy to have you here, and I really think that a lot of the listeners will have questions for you. So if you have any questions, put them in the podcast or message us, and we will try to get back to you. We hope it was super informative to you. And Roz, do you have one final message for all of the listeners? If there was like one thing you could give to everyone.
Yes. I would like the listeners to let them know the next time that they speak to Beyonce, let her know that I'm ready. I have a passport, no kids. I'm ready to be on the road with her. I'll even bring my own pole and my own booty shorts.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So I need Beyonce tagged in everything regarding Roz at this moment. All right. Thank you all.
See ya.
Take care. Bye.